And joining us now on This Is the Day is Mark Shriver. He's the author of this book, Pilgrimage, My Search for the Real Pope Francis. And thank you so much for being with us, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Book has been getting some great praise already from a variety of prominent sources. What's been the reaction of your family as well putting out this book?
Well, I think, I've learned so much from Pope Francis in this 2.5-year journey to really understand the man. To understand, whether the gestures he made when he first became Pope were the real deal. Asking people to bless him before he blessed the crowd.
Yeah.
Washing the feet of the young kids in jail. And I've tried to incorporate some of those lessons I've learned about the sense of humility, sense of mercy. I think if you ask my wife and children, they're going to tell you I haven't changed that much. But I'm trying. I'm trying because he's a great role model and he's a great teacher. His actions. When he came to America a year ago, and he drove around in a Fiat, and everybody else is driving around in these big SUVs. He's sending a message when he invites homeless people to his birthday party in the Vatican. He's sending another message. So the book is really a collection of stories of people that knew the Pope, friends and supporters, and also detractors, to try to paint a full picture of who he is and what he's trying to accomplish.
Sure.
So I haven't really incorporated all of the lessons yet. I'm trying, though.
That's and Jesuit Pope, you were Jesuit educated as well. Talk about that influence in the Pope's life. And how
I went to a Jesuit high school and Holy Cross College in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is the best school in the country. He's really trained by the Jesuits, and he is heavily influenced by Ignatius of Loyola, the 30-day retreat, the real idea of moving to the frontier. The Jesuits are always ready to go. They have the expression, a backpack and a leg up, so they're ready to be commissioned to go out to the frontiers to accompany the poor, the powerless on their journey in life. And the book is named Pilgrimage because we're all pilgrims, including the Pope. He isn't who he is today. That didn't happen overnight. It took him, in this case, 80 years. And he's developing and growing every day. But the Jesuit influence, the incredible academic achievements these guys make, the commitment to academic rigor, but also the commitment to the poor and the powerless and getting out and accompanying people is a hallmark of his papacy, I think.
Yeah. And talk about putting the book together, too. You went to Argentina.
Yes.
Was it challenging to find people and put it all together?
It was incredible. I mean, I don't speak Spanish. I've never been to Argentina. I've, saw the play Evita. I knew a little bit about Juan Perón, but I'm not a historian. I'm not an official biographer. I work with kids. I run, I work at Save the Children.
That's right.
So it was a real challenge, working with a colleague to do the interpretation of the interviews. Some of the folks down there spoke English, so that was great. But the conversations were terrific. Even the ones who, shed a different picture on the Pope that had challenges with him. One guy told me, Kevin, that he still doesn't like the Pope today, but that the Pope, when he was provincial of the Jesuits, had actually saved his life. He said that when he took those actions, when it happened, he was really mad at Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Pope Francis. But that today he realizes that the man saved his life. So, meeting those people, getting through the interpretations, finding the right people that knew him, the guy who collects garbage at night there, who's friends with Pope Francis, who's at his installment mass, Sergio Sanchez, spending, 3.5 hours in a recycling plant in downtown Buenos Aires with the seagulls flying overhead and the pigeons. And listening to the stories of how the Pope baptized his kids, interacted with other trash collectors. It really gives an insight into the man. And that's what the book is. It's just a series of stories of not the big shots, kind of the average people that have been impacted by Pope Francis.
Yeah. Talk about that, too. You just mentioned a little bit of that. But do you think the Pope is thinking about all these things? There's so many different, like conservative, liberal, and everybody's sort of hanging on whatever he writes, whatever he says. He's famous for doing these impromptu press conferences coming back on the plane from the places he goes to. But does that get into his head, you think, or how does that all play out?
I don't think, he doesn't look at it as a 2-year or 4-year cycle like we do here with politics. And he doesn't fit into the box of progressive or conservative. He doesn't lean towards the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or the Independent Party. I mean, his boss, as corny as it sounds, Kevin, is Jesus Christ. And I think he understands he's planting seeds. He's watering some of the seeds that were planted generations ago, and that he's trying to do the best he can by discerning God's voice by talking to people, being collaborative and inclusive. And he's trying to move the church forward, and he's trying to help all of us on our journey here on earth. So I don't think anything gets into him. I think he's completely free.
Yeah.
And I think he's been that way for a long time. He says what he thinks God is pushing him towards. And I think that's incredible interior freedom.
Yeah.
Allows him to do press conferences whenever he wants to, because I think he really thinks that he is working on behalf of God.
Yeah.
And that's his boss.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's not worried about, whether he gets a bad article in the New York Times or the Boston Globe. It's irrelevant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the long scheme of things, your relationship with God and your interior intimacy with God is a lot more important than what the media thinks of you.
Yeah.
And I don't think he worries about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think he worries about what politicians say either.
Yeah.
And he's not leaning one way or the other. He's leaning forward towards God. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned
That's why he's so challenging. Wow, because I think of myself as a progressive Catholic, and he challenges me on a number of different fronts. And I know conservative Catholics who are buddies of mine are equally challenged.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I cut you off.
Oh, no. I was just going to get into the pilgrimage aspect too, and maybe talk about you, because I'm hearing from what you came away with on this pilgrimage as well, and maybe if you could speak about that too, writing this book, taking this pilgrimage, finding out more about the Pope. What has it done for you personally?
Well, the story of Sergio Sanchez, the guy who collects plastic and cardboard, and being invited to the installment mass with a nun and a teacher, and obviously the Pope's family, and interacting with the Pope, and his words just challenged me to my core. If I were elected governor of Maryland, where I lived when I was in politics, I don't think Sergio Sanchez, the guy who collected trash in our neighborhood, is going to be in the front row at my installment, inauguration. And he's really, what he's saying when he gets in the Fiat, when everybody else is driving big SUVs, when he talks about the earth and our, desire or our need to take care of the earth and each other. Am I doing enough? And so it's made me really reflect on the work I do at Save the Children, the way I interact with our kids, my wife, and people I really don't like.
Yeah, yeah.
When he talks about mercy, he's talking about not just being nice to your wife and kids or writing a bigger check to your favorite nonprofit. He's talking about really an intimate relationship with those people, but also people you don't get along with so well, or the homeless folks that I ignore when I walk by them.
Yeah, yeah.
There's this great story in The Name of God is Mercy, in which he talks about this woman who had to prostitute herself in order to feed her kids. And she came and thanked him, and he said, I'm glad you got the food we gave you. And she said, I want to thank you for the food, but more importantly, you always called me Signora. And somehow the Pope had seen into that woman's soul, her eyes, that she needed to be treated and should be treated with respect. And when I look at a homeless person, do I do that?
Yeah.
Do I call them sir or madam? Do I ask them their names? So these little steps, I think, make a big difference in the long scheme of things. These small incremental changes in behavior, I hope.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it well. I'm trying. I'm still doing a lot of sinning.
Everybody is on the journey.
We all are, right?
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Pilgrimage, My Search for the Real Pope Francis is the book, and this would be a great Christmas gift.
From your mouth to God's ears to all your listeners, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Mark,
Thanks
for
a lot.
being with us.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna